She always So, welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight, and today John Hamer is back, and we are going to continue our conversation. In our last interview, we talked about the Crown Corporation, what that is, what it is not. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest you watch it first, but for the audience, it is not the English monarchy what we are talking about. So, John, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Judith. It's good to be back.
Yeah. So, you wrote a book that um, brings this theory to the forefront that the crown is also, or was also in, Evie, was also was also involved in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. So,
Yes.
what gave you that hint? What started the ball rolling?
Yeah. Well, as you say, it's all connected to the British Crown Empire. Which is, for those who've not seen the original episode, as you say, we're not talking about the monarchy, the British monarchy. What we're talking about is the British Crown Empire, which is basically the world financial empire based in the city of London. So yeah, once you start to look under the covers, once you start to look into that, you quickly realize that this is a huge multi-tentacled octopus that controls just about everything in the world, and people don't realize just how much influence Britain still has on the world. We're this small island tucked away in the northwest corner of Europe, but the power that this place wields is just absolutely immense. And it's all centered in the financial district of London, which is known as the City. And that doesn't mean London City as a whole. It's just a square mile, 2 square kilometers, if you will, just to the east of the actual city of London, but it is referred to as the city, which is quite confusing. And that's a separate entity in its own right. It's not part of the UK. Again, a lot of people don't realize this, but it is actually, in all but name, a country in its own right. It has its own mayor, its own laws, its own police force, you name it. And it's also the center for just about every single bank, the headquarters of almost every single bank, certainly in the Western world, is resides within that square mile, the City of London. So it's a very, very powerful entity. So therefore, to answer your question, got around to it eventually. The reason that I started looking into this and discovered what I discovered is because I knew that the whole center of world power is actually within that City of London itself. So it was quite as I go down different rabbit holes, I found lots of connecting things that tell me that this entity controls just about everything. And JFK, to get to the topic that we're discussing, he was a president who was he tried. It was no angel, but he was trying to look after the good will of the people in the United States, and in doing so, he upset just about every single faction you can name. He upset the CIA, the FBI, Israel, big oil, big pharma, the Federal Reserve Bank, even the Catholic Church. He was a Catholic, but he even upset them as well. And who controls all those entities? Right first time, it's the City of London, the British Crown Empire, if you will. So that kind of put a lot of pieces in the jigsaw puzzle for me, and it made me look into it even more. And then I discovered that there were certain British agents, MI6 agents. MI6 is the British Intelligence Service. And by the way, all the intelligence services of the world are absolutely connected. They are connected on an intrinsic level. But that's beside the point for the purpose of this discussion. So yeah, it was MI6 agents that brokered the deal, if you like, to make sure that Kennedy was removed. And I think, that's exactly what happened. And it was organized by two MI6 agents, Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond stories, and a guy by the name of Roald Dahl, who was a Scandinavian, but he was British subject, British national. And he wrote lots of children's stories, famous children's stories like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which you may be familiar with, you may not. But it was he and Ian Fleming that kind of brokered the deal and organized it all. It
But
wasn't.
with whom? So if
Yeah.
you say a deal, to me it sounds okay. The two of them are on the one side.
Yeah.
Who is the other party to this?
Yeah, good question. Lots of different factions involved. CIA, the SIS, the French Secret Service. Again, as I said, all these intelligence services are all interconnected anyway. I believe it was the French Secret Service that actually carried out the assassination, but it was done in coordination with lots of other parties. And even the upper echelons of Kennedy's government were involved in it. People like Lyndon Johnson, who obviously became president after Kennedy. He was involved, several other major politicians, because, let me talk about the relationship between LBJ, Lyndon Johnson, and JFK. JFK was a posh boy. He was from the Eastern establishment in the United States. He came from a wealthy family. Lyndon Johnson was just a poor Southern boy, if you like. And the Southerners, Texas especially, where the oil industry is situated in America, they absolutely hated him. They just thought he was totally out of touch with reality, which I guess he was to some degree. He wasn't one of them, if you like. So they conspired with Johnson, local politicians in Texas, for all this to happen. And and there were so many factions that wanted rid of them. And just to recap, all those factions are controlled through the City of London.
Mm.
So yeah.
So usually when people go to such length to assassinate a sitting president live
Yeah.
on TV, there must be an overwhelming feeling that this man is catastrophic for our agenda.
Exactly that. Yeah.
What exactly, for instance, the FBI? What was so horrible for
Yeah.
them?
Okay. Well, J. Edgar Hoover, who was the head of the FBI, and he'd been head of the FBI for about 30 years at this point. Well, certainly well over 20 anyway. I think it was over 30, actually. He absolutely detested the man. It was just a personal animosity, a personal vendetta against Kennedy. He didn't like him. Kennedy and his brother, Robert, who was, I can't remember what his title was now off the top of my head, but he was a senior guy in government, Robert Kennedy, and he hated the Kennedy brothers because they were trying to take away the power of people like J. Edgar Hoover. So there was a personal vendetta there, and it was mutual. Okay, so there was all sorts of shenanigans going on in the background, incidents where Hoover would try to bring Kennedy into disrepute and vice versa. So that was the FBI link, the fact that they basically hated each other, Hoover and Kennedy, and it was kind of one-upmanship that was going on. So Hoover would have been absolutely glad to see the back of Kennedy just on a personal level. Yeah, the CIA, Kennedy had actually threatened to split, and I quote, to split the CIA into a million pieces. He believed it was a corrupt organization, which of course it was, and still is. And again, so he was doing his best to try and engineer a way to destroy the CIA. So obviously that was the CIA that were up in arms against him as well. and every single element of those, the oil industry. Let's talk about that. The Texas oil industry, who LBJ, Lyndon Johnson, had very, very close ties to. They hated him because he actually saw the corruption going on in the oil industry, and he tried to reduce their subsidies. And in fact, it meant it would have cut their, if he'd succeeded in doing it, it would have cut their subsidies, their government subsidies, down by about 50%, reduced their income by 50%. So, of course, they didn't want that. Federal Reserve, shortly before he was assassinated, a matter of months before he was assassinated, he decided to take away the power to create money from the Federal Reserve and started creating his own government currency. Again, very powerful organization, the Federal Reserve, central bank. And if they couldn't allow him to get away with that. I mean, that was important, not just at a local level in the States, but it was important worldwide. That would have set a huge precedent worldwide, whereby every single Rothschild central bank would have been in trouble if Kennedy would have been allowed to get away with it. So again, that was another element to it. Israel, he had been telling them in no uncertain terms that they were not allowed to have a nuclear power. Okay, and they were building a nuclear power plant at a place called Dimona in Israel at that point in time. And Kennedy was making threats towards Israel. So again, he was coming under pressure from that angle. Just about everything you could name, there was some element of animosity towards him. And as I keep saying, all those elements are controlled by the same entity. So,
what I don't understand is, why would oil companies need subsidies?
well, exactly. I mean,
You bring the oil up to the ground,
yeah,
of the
yeah,
earth, and then you sell it, and that's it. What
yeah.
do you need subsidies for?
Well, okay, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you, and obviously Kennedy did as well, and that's why I tried to stop it. But the way it worked was, apparently they drilling for oil through the subsidies became a no-risk procedure. Okay, so a lot of oil drilling is speculative. They don't actually know where the oil is going to be. They just do test drills, and it actually compensated them for any test drillings that they made that were unsuccessful. So he was taking that away from them, and that left a big hole in their finances. So yeah, but you're right. I mean, they don't need. The money was coming out their ears. I mean, they were so rich, these people. But like all the rich people, they're greedy. They want more. So
Yeah, but that is the part of, the risk that you take as an
of
entrepreneur.
course, of course. But
Wow.
once they have that benefit, and someone tries to take it away from them, they're gonna protest, aren't they?
Mm.
You know.
And how did he upset the Catholic Church?
Yeah. I can't remember now. It's gone from my head. Yeah,
Okay.
honestly, it it did happen though. Trust me on that. Yes, it was something to do with. Gosh, it was something to do with the um, something in the Far East, either Vietnam or Korea, and I can't. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't answer the question, but I'm sure that if anybody's really, really interested in that, it's possible to find it out by a bit of research.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, okay, we have the Federal Reserve, we have the FBI, the CIA, the oil companies, and
Yeah,
then we also have theories around the mafia.
the mafia. Yeah.
Was there something that Kennedy did that irked the mafia?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, him and Robert Kennedy, his brother, they were trying to shut them down.
Hmm.
And this did not go well. I mean, surprisingly to people, people might find this very surprising or strange, But the mafia is an intrinsic part of what goes on in at the top levels of government. They are hand in glove together. So that wasn't something that was going to be allowed either. The mafia needed to make their millions, and he was going to try and destroy them in much the same way as he was going to destroy the CIA. It's all part of the same equation, if you like.
So, in other words, the mafia then is also in cahoots with the crown.
Absolutely, absolutely. They are all in bed together. Yeah, no question.
Wow.
Yeah, and the drug cartels as well. We didn't mention them, but the drug cartels as well. Some people may remember a few years ago about the Iran Contras, the Iran Contra scandal in America in the 1980s with a guy called Oliver North, who was a colonel in the U.S. Army. He was one of the brokers of that particular element of what was going on. And they were bringing. This is why governments come down hard on drugs, because they control the industry. Basically, they don't want. They don't like competition.
Yeah. Okay. So, and the pharmaceutical industry, what was their complaint?
Yeah, the pharmaceutical industry, very similar to the oil industry. Actually,
Mm.
they were being made to toe the line. They were being made to keep to certain restrictions. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Judith, but the pharmaceutical industry in America was at that time, and it still is. It's out of control. They just charge
Yeah.
whatever they like for drugs. A little drug that maybe costs a penny to produce, can be like $100. They're just absolute profit mongers, and Kennedy was trying to rein them in. He was trying to make them, more, shall we say, controlled in terms of how much they were charging for the drugs. The prices of drugs. And I'm not talking about heroin and cocaine. I'm talking about pharmaceutical drugs here, by the way, just to clear that up.
Mm.
The prices were spiraling out of control because there was no restrictions on them
Yeah.
whatsoever, and Kennedy was trying to bring them back under control, if you like.
Yeah, that is also something that Jerry Mazinski always says. Do you know of him?
Yes, I do. I've not heard him speak, but I do know the name. Yeah,
Yeah, and well, he comes from the point of view as a counselor who worked in the prison system and in big psychiatric hospitals as a counselor, not a doctor.
yeah.
And he predominantly worked with schizophrenics.
Okay.
And he also says that when you cross the border into Mexico
Yeah,
and you buy the same drug, yeah,
yeah.
you get it for, I don't know, one third of the price.
I think it's a lot more than that, Judith. I bet it's more like a tenth or even a 20th. To be
Yeah.
fair, the drug price in America are just crazy, honestly. And of course, that was still the same in Kennedy's day, so he was trying to clean that bit up as well.
Mm.
But of course, these are very powerful organizations, and they don't take kindly to having their profits, slashed.
So when we look at this convoluted group of people,
Yeah,
I mean, the official story never made any sense to me about the Kennedy assassination. The lonesome shooter with the magic bullet and but there are so many that have, an interest in
yeah,
removing that
yeah,
man.
yeah.
So would you say that it was probably a concerted effort?
Yeah, definitely. As I said before, it was a combination of all, several different countries' intelligence services, the American CIA, the British MI6, and the French, is it called the SIS, the French one? I can't remember. But yeah, it was those in particular. But there's something in Britain as well called the SOE, which stands for the Special Operations Executive, and this is a kind of an elite section of MI6 which deals with assassinations. Okay, they deny that that's the case, but it absolutely is. What MI6 says when questioned about it, on very few occasions, but they do occasionally get questioned about it. They say, we do not assassinate people. And no, they don't. They just get other people to do it for them. And the SOE is one of those parties that actually carries out assassinations on their behalf. But yeah, I mean, this lone assassin nonsense, Lee Harvey Oswald, who took the blame for it, he's always served the purpose of distraction, if you like.
How does he figure into all of this? I mean,
Yeah,
was he hired as a patsy? Was he placed there and then, they even, yeah, surprised him?
yeah. It's a very complicated situation. Um, but yeah, basically what he was a patsy, obviously. But he thought he was on the same side of the people who were carrying out the assassination. But he was, like you say, he was just placed there as a patsy to take the blame when the deed happened. So yeah, he was in the Texas School Book Depository. He got a job there. He thought he was just there doing his job, but then he realized at some point during what was going on that he was going to be set up, and he escaped. He ran away, and he went to a movie theater, and that's where he was caught, in a movie theater. And yeah, and then he was assassinated by a guy called Jack Ruby, who was a CIA agent. Again, this is not common knowledge, but Jack Ruby was an actual employee of the CIA, the guy that shot him as he was being taken from police custody to the jail. I'm sure lots of people have seen that footage of Oswald walking out of the police station and Jack Ruby coming up and shooting him in the stomach. And then Jack Ruby himself was assassinated a few months later. He was jailed for killing Oswald, and and Ruby was assassinated by some kind of quick acting cancer that they delight in using on certain people. But the point about why would they assassinate Oswald was obviously they couldn't allow him to go to court because his lawyer would make mincemeat of the official story, and also, you get Oswald's side of it coming out, whether they like that or not. That is exactly what would happen. So that's why they had to kill him immediately afterwards. And Jack Ruby was the guy who was tasked with doing that.
And although he knew that it would be detrimental to him, he did it.
Yeah, well, they didn't realize that he was going to be detrimental to him. He thought he was just going to be squirreled away somewhere for a little while. It was obviously paid very well for it, and then he'd just be free to get on with his life, maybe under a different identity. But yeah, he didn't realize that he was going to end up same way as Oswald. That's for sure. Yeah.
So Oswald thought he was howling with the big wolves,
Yes.
and then the wolves turned around and peed at his leg.
Yes, if you put it like that, yeah, very, very succinctly, that's absolutely correct. Yeah,
Hmm. Okay. Is it
but
fair to say that at the end of the day, the independence of the US is a cute dream, but in reality never really happened?
absolutely. And again, this is quite an integral part of the whole thing. This is how the British Crown actually became superior to the United States again, because for those who know their history, apparently America gained its independence from Great Britain in 1776, which, by the way, was exactly the same year that the Order of the Illuminati was founded by Adam Weishaupt in Bavaria. And, you know, the Illuminati is obviously still powerfully connected to this ruling financial elite who possess the lion's share of the world's wealth, you know, mainly through the Rothschild family. But yeah, I'm sorry, I've forgotten the question now. My mind's wandered. There's so much
That
information, honestly.
the independence of the United
Oh, the
States was
independence.
an illusion.
Yeah. Yeah. And what happened was in 1871, 95 years after America ostensibly gained its independence from Britain, um, it, the, America, the country of the United States, actually went bankrupt. So it came crawling back on its hands and knees to the city of London, the Crown Empire, to bail them out. And they said, yeah, of course we'll bail you out, but here are the conditions. And the conditions were that the US would be subsumed, incorporated back into the Crown Empire, into the British Empire, as it was at that time. So, yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's something called the Crown Temple, which again, I'm getting into all sorts of detail here, but the Crown Temple is the legal system of the world, which again is based in the city of London, and it's the Crown Temple that owns America now, because all the people who actually signed the American Declaration of Independence were what are known as Middle Templars. They'd already sworn their allegiance by oath to the Middle Temple, which is the legal part of the Crown Empire, and now Middle Templar attorneys rule America through unlawful contracts, unlawful taxes, and fake contract documents through deceit, and this is all strictly enforced by the unlawful but legal Crown Temple courts and the so-called judiciary in America. This is because the Crown Temple actually holds the land titles and estate deeds to all of North America. Yeah, so it's all very seedy and all very underground, but it's this is absolutely true. And anybody who thinks that I'm talking nonsense, I would urge them to actually look this up for themselves. It's quite easy to find. In there was something called the Treaty of 1783, which identified the King of England or the ruler of England, whether it be a king or a queen, to be a prince of the newly formed United States in perpetuity. And this is 7 years after independence. So King George III, who was on the British throne at that time, allegedly rescinded his claims over America, over the American colonies in 1776, but he absolutely maintained his rights to continue receiving payments for what he referred to as his business venture of colonizing America. So yeah, it's all very, very underground, very secretive, but it's absolutely true. So yeah, there's been two constitutions of the United States. As I say, the first one, which was formulated in 1776, was in 1871 illegally suspended in favor of the Crown Corporation in 1871. So that means there's been in effect what amounts to a shadow government in place in America since 1871. I know it's all very complicated and it's very convoluted, but it's absolutely true. Sorry for droning on a bit there.
No. I found that very enlightening.
Yeah.
What I find interesting, because we already talked about this Independence Day,
Yes.
and there is one short story about the British king. When that happened on that day, he wrote in his diary, "Nothing of importance happened today."
Really, I didn't know that. That's amazing. Thank you for that. I shall make a mental note of that. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
So you can look at that in different
Yeah.
ways. Either he just didn't want to give it any importance,
Yeah.
or he already knew that
Yeah.
at the end of the day we will.
It doesn't make any difference. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's probably that rather than what you said first of all. So yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I mean, there's several interesting things about the assassination. Not so much the assassination. By the way, what the assassination was, it was a Freemasonic symbolic Masonic ritual, which dates back to the murder of someone called Hiram Abiff, for those who know the history of Freemasonry, in King Solomon's temple in Masonic legend. And since then, these people, because again, Freemasonry is absolutely deeply involved in almost all the evil that goes on. And people say to me, "Oh, come on, John, Freemasonry, they just do good things, don't they?" And you say, "Yeah." A lot of people say to me that, but what you don't understand is I'm not talking about the guy down the road who goes to the local lodge meeting, has charity dinners, and raises money for charity in other ways. I'm not talking about that level of Freemasonry. I'm talking about the ones that sit up here, right at the top of the organization. That's what I mean when I talk about Freemasonry, not just the ordinary guy who lives around the corner. Yeah. And so, yeah, all down the ages, they've used this assassination method called the killing of the king. And JFK was just one such episode, because Freemasonry does not believe in murdering someone just in any old way. And by the way, Princess Diana, that was also a killing of the king ritual as well. But in the JFK assassination, it went to incredible lengths and took massive risks in order to make this act correspond to something called the killing of the king, which is an ancient fertility ceremony. But yeah, and bearing that in mind, what I'm going to say now is quite fascinating, because they're also into numerology, as I'm sure you're aware. Now, interestingly enough, Abraham Lincoln, who was also assassinated, by the way, Abraham Lincoln was elected to Congress in 1846. JFK was elected to Congress in 1946. Lincoln was elected president in 1860. Kennedy was elected in 1960. Both the names Lincoln and Kennedy both have 7 letters. Both were involved in civil rights issues. Both their wives lost children while in the White House. Both were shot on a Friday. Both were shot in the head. Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy. Kennedy's secretary was named Lincoln. Both were assassinated by Southerners. Both successors were named Johnson. Andrew Johnson, who succeeded Lincoln, was born in 1808. Lyndon Johnson, who succeeded Kennedy, was born in 1908. The assassins, John Wilkes Booth, was born in 1839. Lee Harvey Oswald was born in 1939. And both assassins were known by all 3 of their names. Both names are comprised of 15 letters. Lincoln was shot at the Ford Theatre, and Kennedy was shot in a Ford Lincoln car, Lincoln Continental car. Now, Booth escaped from a theatre and was caught in a warehouse. Oswald escaped from a warehouse and was caught in a theatre. Now, I personally don't believe in coincidences. I know that's kind of a glib saying, but I don't. I think that everything is planned, everything. Now, I believe that both the murders of JFK and Abraham Lincoln were both ritualistic in design and operation. And the fact that neither story of the subsequent escape of the assassins is true. Oswald wasn't the actual murderer, but and we're not sure about John Wilkes Booth. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I don't know. That's totally irrelevant. But it's just about the perception by the masses of the ritual and the ritualized account itself that's the important bit there. Yeah.
And
and sorry, go on.
and what you just listed there,
Yeah,
that would be the Freemasonic handwriting on it.
I believe so. I
Hmm.
believe so because
But
the
but
top
but
the
but
top.
wouldn't that suggest that Kennedy was groomed for this?
Yeah, well, this is a long story. This is a very long story, and again, all this and much, much more that I'm talking about than what I'm talking about is covered in my book,
Hmm.
JFK: A Very British Coup. But yeah, I talk about Kennedy's upbringing. I talk about, you see, he was never meant to be president. We know that presidents and prime ministers are selected and not elected, don't we? I mean, I think most people who are in the truth movement understand that. But so yes, Kennedy was definitely selected rather than elected. And again, what happened was his father, Joseph Kennedy, Joe Kennedy Sr. He um, he was part of the cabal, if you like, the ruling cabal, and he was he was promised that one of his sons one day would become president. I won't go into all the details about that because it's not relevant. Just take that as read. He was promised because of favors, etc., that one of his sons would become president one day. Now, JFK had an older brother called Joseph Kennedy Sr. Okay, so sorry, Joseph Kennedy Jr. And he was actually killed during the war. He was sent on some kind of suicide mission over Germany, and he was shot down in his plane. And because it was intended that Joe Kennedy would be president. Now JFK was totally unsuited to be president because he had a mind of his own. Okay, they don't like people with minds of their own. They only like people who they can mold and manipulate. So yeah, JFK wasn't really suited to be president because he had a mind of his own, as I say. And yeah, and when Joe was unfortunately killed, or fortunately, depends on how you look at it, um, then Joe Kennedy Sr. actually proposed that JFK would be, was the man. And so, yeah, he won the selection in 1960 against Richard Nixon. And it was the closest ever election in American history. It was like literally, a tiny, tiny amount that he won by, the closest ever election. So yeah, there's no doubt that he was actually selected and not elected. But again, I go into much, much more detail about that in the book for anybody who's interested.
And Lincoln, sorry, and Lyndon B. Johnson was was he knew about this and was.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. He was obviously lined up. I say obviously. Well, he was lined up to be the successor, obviously because he was vice president. But yeah, it was all planned. He was part of it. There were several other senior government figures involved as well, and yeah, all totally pre-planned. I mean, it only became a thing once they realized that Kennedy wasn't going to bend to, just let everything go. Once Kennedy started fighting back against all these different factions, and to be fair to the guy, as I say, he was no angel, but I think he did have the best interests of the people at heart, far more than politicians today do.
And that, oh, I lost my thought. It doesn't matter. It will come back to me.
Okay.
Um, this, do you think they also do the same in China? Strong
In what?
cooperation. I mean, I,
Yeah,
I can't imagine that they not to a certain level do not operate there as well.
yeah, I think yeah, that's a bit of a grey area, isn't it? I'm not sure about that either. Some people, I've heard some people say, "Oh yeah, the China's under the control of the Western powers, and it's only a kind of this fake adversary, if you like." But I honestly don't know, Judith. It's a tricky one, that. So I can't really say
Mm.
one way or the other. I tend to think that it does, but I'm not sure.
What about Russia?
Well, Russia is definitely a controlled fake enemy. Absolutely. No question about it.
Mm.
Yeah.
So all this animosity that is playing out on the world stage is a nice show for the peasants.
Yeah, it's just theatre. I'm afraid it is all just theatre, as you say, for the peasants. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we have a very crucial situation now with Iran,
Right.
and there are a lot of people who fear that this could trigger World War III.
No.
Uh, uh,
Uh,
okay, just I know,
Go on,
but
sorry. Go on.
I don't think so either.
Right.
Um, and I'm not saying I am correct. This is just my intuition. I thought about
Right.
this entire situation, and then China came along and said, "Yeah, but we will defend Iran," and Russia said something, they are going to defend Iran, and then yada yada yada.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I thought about it all by myself, and I thought, what if this is, you know, the handshakes behind the curtain have already been made, meaning Russia is still busy with Ukraine, yeah? And Trump will give him a little bit more leeway there, yeah?
Yeah.
So China is still interested in Taiwan.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe the handshake was along the lines, yeah, okay, if you take over Taiwan, then we will dial it down and we will leave you alone. But
Mm.
the two of you, you will leave us alone when we take out Iran. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it happened
No,
like,
no. No, it's
but
an interesting idea. Yeah. I wouldn't disagree, actually. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure deals like that are made all the time. Yeah. I mean, I don't, it's not a ridiculous suggestion by any means. No. Can I talk a little bit about something called the Zapruder film?
yeah, sure.
Which, yeah, did just for anybody who's not familiar with that phrase, the Zapruder film. This is the famous film of the assassination, which shows I think it's about 26 seconds long, and I think it's 486 frames of film, and it's allegedly recorded one of the most iconic events of the 20th century. That is the killing of JFK. But the problem with the Zapruder film, and it's very, very easy to prove this, it is a complete fake. It's a complete fake from frame 1 to frame 486. Now, in the 1960s, they didn't really have the technology to be able to do that. They did, but it was very, very basic and it took a long time. In fact, it took 12 years for the Zapruder film to actually surface, which is how long it took them to actually create it. Now, and the strange thing about the Zapruder film, again, if anyone wants to go on YouTube and look this up, there are quite a few different YouTubes that show exactly how it was done and why it was done. And obviously it was done because the assassination didn't actually happen in exactly the way that the film shows. For example, when the first shot was fired, the car stopped. Okay, the Zapruder film doesn't show that at all. And it stopped for quite a few seconds while a few of the shots were fired. So obviously the driver was in on it. But the Zapruder film doesn't show that at all. There's all sorts of other bits as well that it doesn't show, which appeared in leaked footage from various different sources. But the most intriguing thing about it to me is the fact that there were at least 8 different film crews filming, as you would I mean, it was an important event. You know, the president in a motorcade through a city, Dallas. There were 8 separate film crews filming that. Now, what happened to all that footage? Where did that go? Nobody ever talks about that. Nobody ever asks questions about that. It's just accepted that the Zapruder film, this fake piece, this piece of fakery, this fake film, is the definitive record of what happened that day, and it's just so wrong. And there are so many people, again, I cover all this stuff in the book, but there's so many people who had handheld little movie cameras, you know, the quite primitive movie cameras of that day, you know, 60 years ago, had their cameras confiscated. There were agents, FBI or CIA agents, going round confiscating movie cameras. Quite a lot of people after the event came forward and said that, you know, they'd had their camera confiscated and they never ever saw it again. What happened to all that film? And why does it focus specifically on this Zapruder film? It's called the Zapruder film, by the way, because it was a guy called Abraham Zapruder that took the film, and he was a 32nd degree Freemason.
Zapruder?
Zapruder was, yeah. So, yeah, he apparently handed over the footage to a Secret Service agent, or so the story goes, and it was allegedly used as part of the formal investigation. And he later sold the rights to it for, I think it was $150,000 from memory. And then in the 1970s, when it was finally shown on TV, the Zapruder family, because Abraham had died by this time, the Zapruder family was awarded $6 million for it. You know, it's all very strange.
And okay, but why did they feel the need to produce this fake film?
Because the real film of the assassination would have shown things that they didn't want to see, such as, for example, I've already mentioned the car stopping for several seconds. I think it was 7 seconds or 8 seconds while the shooters, and by the way, it was shot from a drain, a storm drain under the pavement. That was the one that hit him in the head and killed him. You know, it was hit with 1 or 2 other bullets as well. But the Zapruder film doesn't show any of that. You see, the real films will show all of the stuff that you don't want to see. The fact that it would have been impossible for Oswald to hit him from the distance he was at with the rifle that he allegedly was using. There's all sorts of kinds of things like that. So it was a case of covering up all the real films and presenting us with a fake film, and that Zapruder film was the one that fitted that bill. So yeah, I mean, there were lots of shooters. There were ones on the grassy knoll. There were ones in the storm drain, which is where it was shot from. Yeah, it's all crazy.
And then the security forces went around and took the cameras away from people?
Absolutely, they did, yeah. And quite 1 or 2 of those people who protested for long enough and vehemently enough, in fact, 2 people, I believe, both died in very strange circumstances shortly afterwards. In fact, I'll expand that a little bit. And again, I detail a lot of these people that were peripherally attached to the assassination plot. 200 people met very strange deaths in the following 2 years. And I name a lot of them and explain the circumstances of their deaths. And it was all very suspicious. So 200 people died to cover it all up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of an American comedian called Bill Hicks?
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing guy. Obviously, he's dead now. Well, I say obviously, but he is dead now. And I always remember something that he said, which I found absolutely hilarious. He wasn't massively awake, Bill, but he did know that there was something not right about what was going on, you know. And he says, I've got this in front of me now, actually, so I'll read it. He said, Boy, I love talking about the Kennedy assassination. That's my favorite topic. You know why? Because to me, it's a great example of a totalitarian government's ability to, manage information and thus keep us all in the dark. Anyway, oh, sorry, wrong meeting. That's the meeting we're having tomorrow down at the docks. And then he said, he said, I have this feeling because, there's a handful of people that actually run everything. That's true. It's provable. A handful, a very small elite group run and own these corporations, which include the mainstream media. I have this feeling that whoever's elected president, no matter what you promise on the campaign trail, when you win, you go into this smoky room in the basement of the White House with the 12 industrialist capitalist scumfucks who got you in there. And you're in this smoky room and the little screen comes down and a big guy with a cigar says, roll the film. And it's a shot of the Kennedy assassination from an angle you've never seen before that looks suspiciously off the grassy knoll. And then the film ends, the screen goes up and the light comes on and they say to the new guy, any questions, Mr. President? I just thought it was so funny.
Yeah, he is probably not that wrong.
No.
What I also find interesting that all American presidents, because we talked about, the illusion of independence from the
Yes.
crown,
Yes.
and they have a bloodline to, Scotland,
Yeah.
to England, to
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even Obama.
Yes. Even Obama, yeah, because he did have white ancestry as well as black, of course. I
Yeah,
think his mother was white, wasn't she? It was his father
yeah,
that was black.
yeah.
So
And
yeah,
and
there's
there's
a
a Scottish and an English royal in there.
yes,
The only
absolutely.
one where I couldn't find a so-called royal connection was Biden.
Right. Okay. I believe somebody has traced Biden back to British royalty. I think there's. I may be wrong there, Judith. Actually, so yeah, you could be right. I know that there is one American president that nobody has been able to trace back, and it could be Biden. But yeah, I thought it was somebody else.
Yeah.
But you could be right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
So, in other words,
They're all controlled.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think with Obama, not too many people would have expected that. And now that
No.
we have a Trump in office, he has a bloodline from Norway and from Iceland.
Right. I didn't know that. Yeah.
You can type it in, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Trump's royal bloodline, and the article will come up and it will show you all the ancestors from the Icelandic
Okay.
bloodline and from the Norwegian bloodline.
Wow. I didn't know that. Interesting. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It does look vaguely Scandinavian, doesn't it, when you think about it? Apart from the orange face, but yeah.
Yeah, but I have heard that if you meet him in person, he doesn't look that orange.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What do you think is significant about that?
I don't know. I don't know. The media here, they all hate Trump.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Same here. Same here.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe they make him look a little bit more orange.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah, it's possible. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, I recently saw that in the UK, people wanted to do a march in London,
Right.
that Britain belongs to Jesus. They wanted to do a Jesus march. And the
Right.
police banned that march in order to not offend Muslims.
Yes, that's very true. That did actually happen. Now, I will say that I don't follow current affairs that closely, which may seem a bit strange for somebody who does what I do, but I tend to look at things in retrospect rather than as they're actually happening. The main reason for that is nothing kind of scientific about that. It's just that I absolutely detest listening to the mainstream news because it makes me want to put my foot through the TV or smash the radio. I just can't abide listening to them. They just drive me absolutely crazy. So yeah, but I am aware of that, and you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay, and the reason why I brought it up is, I mean, London is in close proximity to the city of London.
Yes.
And I always wondered what was their goal with the flooding of Europe with all illegal migrants. What do you think was the goal here?
Okay. Well, it's a very controversial view, but and it's not just my view. I mean, this is a view of many people. There was a guy in the 20s, 30s called I think it was called Richard
Cagliari,
Coudenhove-Kalergi.
Kalergi, yeah.
Yeah, and he devised a plan called the Kalergi Plan,
Mhm.
which was to flood Europe with as many non-white immigrants as possible in order to destroy the white race. Oh, come on, John. Why would they want to destroy the white race? The reason they would want to destroy the white race is a very simple one, and that is because they see us as the biggest threat to their power. You know, they believe, rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying whether this is right or whether it's wrong, but they believe that other nationalities, other ethnic groups are more pliable, more malleable. And again, it's a generalization. Obviously, not everybody is going to be like that, but this is what they believe, not what I believe. They believe that the black, brown, yellow, red people, even blue people for all I know, they feel that they are inferior and that they are much easier to control. So they want to rid Europe of the white race. And it's a very simple equation. And this is why mass immigration is happening. It's happening in every country in Europe. And, it is becoming intolerable,
Except for
I,
Hungary and Poland.
yes, absolutely. Well, they won't allow immigration, will they? I don't know whether they allow white immigration, but they certainly don't allow, non-white immigration. Yeah, I mean, I saw some figures last year, which I've no reason to believe were inaccurate, and it said that the non-white population replacement rate at the moment in the UK is 1.6. Now, to sustain it, it has to be 2.01. I don't understand where they get that figure from, other than the fact that you need two children to replace two parents. But why 2.01? I don't quite understand that bit. But anyway, that's what they say. So to sustain a population, you need a replacement rate of 2.01, apparently. The current white replacement rate in the UK is 1.6, which means that the white population is declining massively. And the non-white reproduction rate is 4.8. This is UK figures. I don't know the European ones, but I can imagine that they're fairly similar. So, and then this article concluded that by the year 2050 or 2055, it might have said, which I won't be here then, fortunately, because I'll be 100 and something. But the white population of the UK will be somewhere between 7 and 8%. So it's working. Whatever they're doing, it is working. And there's even something called the Coudenhove-Kalergi Prize, which a lot of people are not aware of.
Merkel has that prize.
Merkel had it. British, I think it was, who was it that had it? Tony Blair. One or two other people that I can't remember. People to do with the EU. A lot of EU people have had it. The presidents of the EU. Yeah, and it's so obvious. I mean, people say, "Oh, it's a conspiracy theory." It's not true. I saw it on Google. It's just a conspiracy theory. Nonsense. It's a conspiracy fact, I'm afraid. It's absolutely true. I mean, the very fact that there is a prize that is awarded and recorded as being a prize for the person who does most to facilitate mass non-white immigration wins this very lucrative prize, and it is a very lucrative prize, I believe. it speaks volumes. How can that be deniable? It just can't.
Okay, I get that part, but what does not make sense to me, I cannot speak for the migrants that come to the UK, but here in Germany, roughly 70% of those people who come in are not capable of reading and writing even in their own language, let alone
Really.
so. So
I Yeah, I
now,
don't.
in the long run, you cannot make any strides with those people.
No.
You cannot invent anything. You will not produce
Yeah.
anything. You
Yeah. Yeah.
will not make any leaps forward
Mm,
with inventions that, benefit humanity in some
yeah.
way. So
Yeah.
I don't get it.
No. Well, it's just part of the destruction of the white race, isn't it? I mean, yeah, I understand what you're saying. No, I don't get it either. Why would you do that? It just doesn't make any sense economically or politically, does it? But unless you take that into account, the fact that they just want to destroy the white race. I don't know whether it's the same in Germany or the rest of Europe, but in the UK, something like maybe 70% the same. 70% of the immigrants, non-white immigrants, are young, black, single males. So what are they going to do? They're going to breed with white women. And again, that's diluting the white race away, isn't it?
And I think that will get worse
Yeah,
because Africa, um, every month they release the entire continent of Africa. They release 1 million young people into the workforce.
yeah,
Only 1 in 4 will get a job with a contract and some benefits and what have you.
yeah.
The rest of them will not, meaning this, of course, is not sustainable. Yeah.
No,
Uh, and it also means there will be more coming.
yes, yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a very sad state of affairs. And to be honest, Judith, I'm glad I'm the age that I am. I'm in my
Me
70s
too.
now.
Me
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
And because I fear for my children and my grandchildren. Honestly, I do. It's a horrendous situation. You know, we're having our birthright taken away from us.
Yeah. So, and and you think this Crown Corporation is also in on that?
Of course, that they control just about everything that goes on. There's lots of different factions, and it's very hard to tell exactly, which bit fits where. But it's a very loose conglomeration of different factions, such as Freemasonry, the Crown Empire, blah 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 blah. Lots and lots of different ones. All the different families that are involved: the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Mellons, you name it.
But they are all white.
They're all white. But you see, it doesn't affect them, does it? Because they're insulated from the rest of us. They live in their gated communities with their massive security and their private helicopters. Doesn't bother them in the least, does it?
Yeah, I get it, but I don't know what they hope to gain from that.
I don't. Do you know? I don't think they care. They just have this agenda, and they just it kind of seems a bit counterintuitive, but it's almost as though they don't care about their children's future. They just live for the moment, and this is what they want, and this is what they do because they can, and they have the power to do it. They're not interested in money, these people. Absolutely not interested in money at all. They just have so much just meaningless to them. All they're interested in is power. And if you ever read 1984 by George Orwell, that is actually it was written in 1948, by the way. That was stated in there as well. It was very, very predictive. These people are not interested in money. They're interested in power for power's sake. They're psychopaths and they don't know anything else. They're brought up from birth to just seek this power all the time by dominating people and countries that they decide to do. So yeah, it is. I agree with you. It's a very strange situation, but that's how it is.
Hmm. Just to wrap this up, and is there anything that you would like to add about the Kennedy assassination that we haven't touched on that you find important to know?
There are lots and lots of things. I mean, there's almost too much to mention about it. The fact that Lee Harvey Oswald went to Russia, he spent a lot of time in Russia.
Hmm.
He was being trained for something or other. I believe he was, if he wasn't a part of the CIA, then he was being uh, uh, told or deceived that he was part of the CIA. There's something really strange about that background. Again, I talk about that more in the book, but there was that, and there was also he also had a double, which is a really weird diversion from the whole event, if you like. He had a double, and a lot of people, and I'm not saying that I do, but a lot of people believe that this double was called. One of them was called Lee Oswald, and the other one was called Harvey Oswald, and they weren't related, and they didn't even know each other, but they were being groomed by the CIA for this specific event or a specific event in the future, and it just so happened that the Kennedy assassination became that event. Obviously, they didn't know many years ago that when the Oswalds were being brought up separately, that the Kennedy was going to be assassinated, but they were being brought up, groomed to use in some event in the future, if necessary. So yeah, there's that. And again, I cover all that in my book about the possibility of there being two Oswalds. I don't necessarily believe it, but it's certainly intriguing and it's fascinating, the circumstantial evidence for it. The other thing is that a lot of people claim that some of the footage that has escaped into the public domain, not the Zapruder film, actually shows the driver of the Kennedy's limo doing this with a gun over his shoulder and shooting Kennedy. And again, who knows? You could construe it that way when you see the footage. But again, that's another theory that's been doing the round, about it was the driver that shot Kennedy. It's kind of irrelevant, really. It doesn't matter who shot him in a way. We know who was trying to shoot him, but yeah. So there's lots and lots of interesting little
That would
tidbits.
explain why Jacqueline Kennedy was trying to get out of the car.
Yeah, it would actually. Yeah. Have you heard that before about the driver shooting him?
Yeah, and
Mm.
because I remember she was climbing.
Yeah, she was
Um,
clambering on the back of the car, wasn't she?
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
I remember, although I was yeah, I was not even six, was around five
Okay.
when that happened. But I remember it vividly because my parents were shocked to their bones.
Yes, everyone was, weren't they? Yeah, my parents were as well. And I was 11, and I just remember coming home from school and it being on the news on the TV. Um, you know, and everybody was in shock. It was one of those moments, wasn't it? Like Princess Diana's assassination, one of those times where you can remember exactly where you were when you heard the news kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
So, yeah, what a world we live in, huh?
it's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, but
It's not fun, is it really?
no, not really.
No.
I mean, you can have a good time here, definitely.
Oh yeah. Well, one of the things this is, what I'd like to round off with Judith for me. One of the things people say to me, I do public speaking, I do talks, I give talks all around the country. Um, and a lot of people say to me, come up to me afterwards and say, or even during the question session at the end, "Oh, John, how do you cope with all this terrible information? I just feel so scared and so sad all the time." And I say, well, what you've got to do is, and this is to anybody out there who feels exactly the same way, I would say the only way that I cope with it personally, and I would recommend you try this for yourself, is to just compartmentalize it in your own brain. Just shove it away in the dark recesses of your mind and only bring it out when you need to, when you have to, when you're talking about it, when you're researching it, or whatever you do with it. Don't let it dominate your life, your world, your mind, because if you do, you will live in fear forever. And this is exactly what those people want. They want us to live in fear. Why? Because the fearful people are very, very easier to control, very much easier to control than someone who is happy and free. So yeah, just try and compartmentalize it. A lot of the stuff that you hear that is going to happen, Judith kind of touched on that earlier, never happens anyway. Talking about World War III specifically. And I'll also say, just as a little aside, nuclear weapons do not exist. It's all a fake. It's all a hoax. Easily provable. And maybe we could talk about that sometime, Judith, if you want to. But yeah, so don't worry about nuclear war. Don't worry about World War III. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, there I certainly disagree, but it doesn't matter. Um,
You
yeah,
disagree about nuclear weapons?
mm,
Okay.
yeah, I
Right.
disagree with that.
Okay. All right. Fair
But
enough.
we don't have to scratch our eyes out
No,
over this.
not at all.
Mm. To me, it falls into this huge pit of the earth is flat, there are no nuclear weapons, and viruses do not exist.
Ooh. We better not go there then, had we?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, yeah. There are certain things that I find a little bit too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm, I am leaning towards flat Earth. I'm not saying I absolutely believe it, but I'm more leaning towards the fact that the Earth is much larger than we're told. Okay, because there's so many anomalies with the globe Earth theory. Absolutely. And again, I don't want to go into detail because this is not the forum for it, but I'll just say that. I a few years ago, flat Earth nonsense, rubbish, absolutely crazy. Until I started looking into it. Excuse me. And when I started looking into it, I became a doubter.
Maybe you can explain to me how then it works with day and night on a flat plane.
Oh, I couldn't even begin to.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, it's easy to find out. It's the flat plane is a circular flat plane with the sun and the moon going around it. Okay, and it's like shining a spotlight on a table. So as the sun moves around, it's like a spotlight on a flat circular table, and that's how it works, like that. And the same with the moon. The moon's going around at a different time. That's a very poor explanation, but that's the basic gist of it. But there's lots and lots of diagrams and models of a flat Earth cosmos, if you like, on the internet. If you care to look, perhaps you don't,
Yeah,
but
it interested me for 10 minutes and then I was done with it.
fair enough. Each to our own, isn't it?
So, okay, I thank you so much for coming, and
My pleasure.
I will definitely invite you back.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, guys, that was it, and we see you on the next one.
Bye bye, everyone. Thank you.